Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Mortal Kombat 2. As the title says, there will be spoilers in the second half, but of course I'll let you guys know when we get to that. You might be wondering, if you're familiar with my channel, why I don't have any Mortal Kombat merch on. All I got is Mortal Kombat 1. I don't have an MK hat, I don't have an MK shirt. However, I'm a giant nerd that knows a lot about video games, and of course I play a bunch of Mortal Kombat, so I wore my, well, technically this is Army of Darkness and not Evil Dead. Or no, this is Army of Darkness, it's Evil Dead. Nope, it's Army of Darkness, my bad. I got a bunch of these, sometimes I mix and match them. But I got my Army of Darkness shirt because Ash Williams from Evil Dead was supposed to be in Mortal Kombat 11, and sadly, that was taken from us. I don't know what happened, but I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, man, his friendship guaranteed would have been him in like his S-Mart outfit, 100%. It would have been the S-Mart reference, and that's horrible. That's one of the smallest things I could ask for, and it was taken from us. That's unfortunate. But since I don't have any Mortal Kombat stuff to actually wear, we went with what could have been. So there you go, that's a random pointless story. If you're not familiar with the games, that's something we could have had, and that's why I'm wearing an Army of Darkness shirt. But getting into the movie, it's a million times better than the first one. That's all I gotta say off the top. It's better than the first movie. I recently rewatched the first movie on Monday, well, obviously last Monday, but we watched that. My girlfriend actually wanted to see the second one only because Tati Gabrielle was gonna end up being Jade in it. So I was like, all right, we should probably watch the first one then. So we rewatched that, or I rewatched it. She saw it for the first time. It was all right. I don't remember what I said the first time I saw it, but it was definitely just like, it was okay. Like a lot of people said, like, it wasn't like the worst thing ever, but it was like, all right, you made a custom character. Okay, well, all right, I guess, sure. If that's how you want to do it, when you could have just picked literally any other character at all. You got a couple in there. Liu Kang was in the first movie too. I don't know why he wasn't the main character, but it is what it is. I'll say they definitely fixed that. Like, even though Johnny Cage is like hyped up as like the new guy because it's Johnny Cage, and also Carl Urban, super popular, being from The Boys currently. Check out Dredd, by the way. Amazing in that, super underrated movie. Great action. If you like Mortal Kombat, you'll love Dredd. Dredd was like phenomenal. He was great in that movie. But I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was like definitely like a huge upgrade compared to the first one. The first one had like some moments that are good, like the fights are still good. All the actual fatalities that they do in the first movie are definitely still good. Like they have like the crazy moments where like Kung Lao actually uses his hat and stuff. Is like they did the fatalities in the first movie, and it was like, okay, these moments are good. My girlfriend was certainly impressed. She was like, wow, I did, like, she constantly was like, that's crazy. Like, she's like, I was not expecting that. It's like, yep, Mortal Kombat. And my girlfriend knows like nothing when it comes to honestly anything nerdy. It's been quite the experience. It's been quite the experience, kind of just showing her my world and her being surrounded by all this nerdy crap. But she enjoyed it. Of course, I enjoyed it. And I was like, it's all right. It was still okay. Went to see this. I was actually super hyped for it because it seemed like they understood, they kind of got it, like, hey, we listened to feedback and stuff, and I was like, all right, I'm looking forward to it. And even before I saw it, I saw a lot of the reviews, at least the titles. I didn't want to know anything, but just about everybody was like, a couple of people were like, flawless victory, and I'm like, okay, I'm hyped, let's see what happens. And it was good. It was definitely fun. I think moves mile a minute. I don't think they even have like a slow point outside of the actual intro. I think the opening to the movie is the slowest point in the whole movie, where they like build up one of the characters, and that's literally it. And like, other than that, it's like it's moving a mile a minute, which I personally don't mind. That could be one of those things where it's funny to think about. It's moving a mile a minute, but for this movie it worked. And the first thing that comes to mind is the last Mario movie that came out with Super Mario Galaxy, and that was like the whole problem. But this one doesn't, and I don't know if it's because it makes sense. Like when you have a tournament movie, you can move a mile a minute. It's like, hey, we got this, bad guys. Okay, they're kind of trying to, they're trying to do this thing during the tournament. Okay, and then that's it. Like you have the characters fight, and then like if something goes off on the side, you send whoever's not fighting to do the other thing, and then they fight somewhere else. And that's literally the movie. It's like, well, they have to fight, and then they're going to fight because they got to do something else. That's the whole movie, mile a minute. I personally enjoyed it. I thought they did a good job with that. And of course, the fatalities were even better in this one. They had some really good ones. They had a great, I think everyone says the same thing. This guy was involved in it. That fight, it was the best one. It was the best one. It wasn't just the action, but it was like great action, great scenery in general. And then actually it was like the only fight that had a deep story. Like all the fights really had story. I say that one, and then like the final fight of the actual movie was the other one that had like actual like real deep story to it. But it was good. It was definitely fun to watch. And I thought it was cool. Some of the newer characters that they had, of course, they had a couple, not just the characters we knew, but there's some people where it was like, didn't expect that person to come back because, dead. So they, of course, explain that. Obviously, if you play Mortal Kombat, it was kind of already like, well, I know how they're going to do it. So let's see how that pans out. But I thought they did a good job. There's so much stuff I want to talk about, so there's not much to say non-spoiler wise. It was good. It moves a mile a minute, which you might really enjoy. There might be some issues there, but I don't think anyone will have that many problems with it. Is like, it's Mortal Kombat. They're going in, they're fighting, and for as fast as it moves, they still end up incorporating to me at least, a decent enough story where it's like, hey, this is what you need to know about this person, and like these two people, either as a pair or individuals. Like, they have enough people that have like important story beats throughout the film where it's like, okay, that works. And it's not all based on, you know, the brand random new character, Cole Young. So it's based on actual Mortal Kombat characters we know and love from the franchise. Also, shout out to them always putting Liu Kang in like the actual outfits. I love that. When I rewatched the first movie, I was like, all right, at least he's like, you know, him and Kung Lao were like always like 100%, like that looks like they just put them in the costumes from the game, and they do the same thing in this. And I was like, that's cool. Yeah, I can always appreciate that. Shao Kahn, amazing. They did more justice than I anticipated for Shao Kahn. I'll put it that way, and you know, we'll talk about that more in spoilers, but they gave him more than what I anticipated for this movie, where I was like, oh, I think everybody, you know, admittedly, obviously we get to spoilers, but I think everybody probably felt the same way. So non-spoiler wise, definitely fun. Definitely go check it out. I saw it with the moving seats, which is, that's how I see like quite literally every movie these days. But you know, being in Michigan, that's actually kind of cheap. You know, Cinemark movie thing. I'm not sponsored. I wish I was, but it's $10 a month and you get a free ticket every time. I'm just throwing that out there. It's been like a godsend for me. Plus I go to the movies all the time, so it actually works for me. Just saying. But non-spoiler wise, Mortal Kombat, absolutely amazing. Mortal Kombat 2, I should say. Absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's like 10 out of 10 amazing, but it's definitely like, I can rewatch that and have fun with it. Like when that hits HBO Max, I might one day at least go to like watch the cutscenes. I literally, outside of rewatching the first one with my girlfriend, I never saw it again. I saw it that one time and I was like, okay, I'm done. You know, there like some fights in there where that are kind of cool, which was really just Scorpion versus Sub-Zero in the beginning and then the end of the movie, and that was really it, you know, for that one. And Kung Lao's fight was actually pretty cool in the first movie, but that was really it. And I was like, I've never had any interest to rewatch that film ever again. I've seen it twice and I will probably never see it a third time, and that's it. But this one, I'm like, I can pick that up. I could see myself watching that like every once in a while, just randomly being like, I could throw it on, or at the very least, just go to like some of the fight scenes, because the choreography was even better. Like the fights I liked in the first movie is like twice as good in this second one. So that's definitely something I would highly recommend. If you're even remotely interested, if you're watching this, go see the second movie. It's definitely fun. So from here on out, full on spoilers. They killed everybody. Like they were killing people left and right. Like Cole Young, we saw it coming. It was happening. You know, I left my wife and children. You know, I might never see them again. You know, the tournament, we fight to the death. I was like, dude, you don't have to say death all the time. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do a speech, even though it was really obvious. Because honestly, as soon as they did it, it was like, okay, I kind of like how they did it story-wise too, because they didn't just be like, oh, well, everybody hated him because he was like, you know, just a random character that we made up for the first movie. Let's just kill him off like, oh, he lost in the tournament, whatever. It was like, no, you fought Shao Kahn, which I'm not even gonna lie. If they killed him without Shao Kahn just cheating to become immortal, I would have been like, you know what? Yeah, that's fair. It's Shao Kahn. If there was anyone, it would be like, dang, he's dead. Like even like, I'm not gonna lie, even if he didn't become immortal, he would have been toast. That's how I personally feel about it. But the way they did it was he got what would have been a kill in, which once again, I think was only because Shao Kahn left his hammer down. Like he specifically did it because he was like, I'm immortal now. Like, I can kind of just go hand to hand. And of course, you know, he got like sliced up a bit, which happens to him like 3 times in the movie. King Jarrett does it in the beginning, and then he beats him when he stops the blade. And then Cole ends up doing it where he slices him up and then he, you know, cuts him across the neck and slits his throat. And then Kitana actually does it at the very end, kind of the same situation where that was like right when he was immortal. And then, or actually no, when he was immortal, she did something else, but then she like, you know, slit his throat and then he had to try to fight through it. And same thing, she like sliced him up and stuff. Although I think that was meant to kind of mimic her father there, but definitely it was like he was getting sliced up left and right throughout this movie. But most of the time he was taking hits, he was immortal, so it was no big deal because he was taking some real hits. Like they weren't effing around. Like Cole did his job and he tried. And if he didn't, you know, if Shao Kahn hadn't cheated, granted, like I said, even without the immortality, had he used his hammer, I'm like, I'm not, like, I'm sorry. Like, granted, his whole thing was like, hey, he take, you know, potential energy and converts it into kinetic energy, or technically he just converts kinetic energy into more kinetic energy. But if Shao Kahn just hit him, considering the stage they were on, I'm like, he would have been dead anyway. Like Shao Kahn's whole thing is super strength. Like just swing to the left or swing to the right. And it's like, I'm sorry, you got this much space and you're just acid over here, acid over there. He would have died. Like he would have died no matter what. But at least they gave him that little moment where it's like, oh, he kind of would have won. It was like, yeah, if he left his hammer there, sure. But he had a moment, he had a speech and everything. And then they just slammed him down just splat, and then they just like, here, let's just shove you right into that acid. They don't even show it, which I thought they would like show his body like kind of bubble up and stuff, which by the way, maybe they could bring him back still. He melted, it was a little different. They even kind of reference it where Shao Kahn was talking about Sindel, where it's like, oh, Katana betrayed him, and he was like, maybe she will be harder to bring back without a skull. It's like, Cole has no body. He melted. He's one of the like skeletons that like pops up, at the end. So they'll probably bring him back anyway. They'll find him from heaven or whatever. But I'm like, I think he'd have the hardest time coming back because he was just kind of melted down to nothing. So we'll see. I'm sure they'll bring him back, as everyone has said a million times over. It's like, if you want to just, for some idiotic reasons, like, we couldn't, you're Kenshi now. Who cares? That would be great. Lewis Tan would be phenomenal as Kenshi. I honestly feel like he kind of looks like, specifically like the MK1 version, I was like, kind of feels like that looks like Lewis Tan anyway for me. But, same thing everybody says, like, he should make him Kenshi. We'll make him Kenshi. So we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll find some weird loophole, convert his power, whatever random crap. Either way, I don't hate him. Like they made him, give him like a short role, made him the first person that ended up dying off. And it was like, okay, he had his moment. He fought Shao Kahn. Regardless of whether or not he was immortal, I personally think he would have been done for anyway, because it's Shao Kahn. If he beat him, I would have been like, yeah, that's Shao Kahn. And then Shao Kahn beat him, and then Shao Kahn killed Jack, and then Shao Kahn killed Liu Kang. And I was like, Liu Kang got killed, or like he kind of died, but then he was just like, all right, I'm out of here, and he just ascended. He pulled an Obi-Wan, was just like, I'm kind of dead, but like, I'm gonna go somewhere, which I'm fine with. And he goes off to find Kung Lao. Great fight between them, of course, and just like the emotional weight to it, and of course amazing martial arts skills. So that was awesome, and they did some amazing stuff with the hat, like just flying all around. Like that's obviously something we can't really get from the game. So to see that, I was like, that's super cool. Like him, like the hat being sideways, and he teleports into the ground and then basically like forms in the hat sideways to do like a side spin. I was like, I don't think that's in the game. From what I recall, it might be in like one of the, maybe the last two, like 1 in 11. But I'm like, I don't think I've seen that move before. But the hat was just flying around, and like Liu Kang is like just dodging and stuff. And the way they ended it was so good. And he takes the hit, and then as he's flying, he grabs him, and then he does the buzzsaw. And I was like, this is cool. And he's like crying and stuff. I was like, man, Shaolin monks. If a man can dream, Shaolin monks the movie. I would love Shaolin monks the game can come back. Honestly, remaster, just put it out. I'd be happy. Like, honestly, Shaolin monks, please. For the love of God, Shaolin monks. That game is so good. But fantastic fight, absolutely amazing fight. But all of the doubts that they have back and forth was like, this is actually kind of nuts. Johnny Cage, of course, was good. He gets spared by Kitana. Jade gets spared by Jax, but of course, I love the moment where he hits her bow staff and is like, what the hell you have in this thing? And then when she breaks at the end, it's like just the full green one, which I thought was interesting because I like the fact that it's like a normal blade, and then I always assumed that she like imbued her power into it to make it green, and then just made it like a full green staff, which looked visually pretty cool. So I don't, I personally don't mind it, but I was like, I always thought it was kind of cooler to just be like a staff that she imbued her own power into, because she could kind of like a Gambit situation where she could just put power into other things. That's how I always saw it, at least. But it still looked great, so I have no problem with that. But all in all, I thought they did a really good job with it. I liked the intro, and of course it was sad. Like I already Mortal Kombat fan, so I knew what was happening. It was like, man, this is probably like the saddest version of me actually seeing it, where it's like he's going through, he had his moment, and he was doing like the slicing up, and he caught the blade, and then he stabbed his hand on his other hand, and then he just pulled it out, and all his fingers were gone. I was like, well, there's nothing you can do after that unless you got some power, some magic kicks. That's it. And unfortunately, that was it. And it was like, wow. Granted, that was literally in the trailer, so I think everyone knew he was gonna die if you paid attention. But it was like, okay, and that's how they did it. And then there was the introduction to Kitana, and I love the way they handled that. I wish we got a little bit more with Sindel. They didn't even do the hair thing, so I'll admit I was like slightly disappointed with that. But I liked her fight with Sonya. I also wish that fight was like a tiny bit longer. I felt like it was surprisingly short for what they were doing. I love that they were in the bottom of the pit. That was kind of cool. And then they had the spikes come up like periodically, and I was like, oh, that's a cool way to interpret that, instead of them just always being there. It's like, okay, they kind of pop up here and there as a part of the the trial of the combat. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And Sonya, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, a part of me was a little worried just because of how random it was. I was like, are they gonna kill Sonya? Oddly enough, they were just killing everybody else in the movie. So I was like, oh, I was like, okay, she was safe. Killed off Cole was kind of like, sort of expected that. And then, outside of the tournament where they go through and have their moment, and they get to the castle, and it's just like, oh, Jax is dead. for real this time. You know, like it seemed like he was dead in the first movie. My girlfriend was super shocked by that, where it was like, you know, his arms blow off and then he just drops down and hits his head super hard. And she thought he was, of course, like actually dead. And then in this one, I was like, oh, he's actually dead. Like they just right through his chest. And I was like, you know, you're waiting. I'm like, well, they're not gonna kill him twice. You know, and then he's dead. I was like, they killed Jax. They just killed Jax. That's insane. And then you have the ending fight, Shao Kahn versus Sonya and Liu Kang. And then Liu Kang's doing this whole thing. Reversal, boom, right through his chest. I'm like, Liu Kang? That's great. Like, how does this make you kill Liu Kang? I don't hate how they did the movie though, like especially with Kitana obviously being the one to do like the final blow at the end. But I was like, whoa, I did not see that coming at all. I thought, you know, at the very least, they would stop the amulet and it would still take both of them to do it. And I would have been fine with that because Shao Kahn is still Shao Kahn. Even when Liu Kang beats him, it's still like, if there's an alternate story where Shao Kahn wins, I'm like, okay. You know, I'm not really like hating on that because I'm like, it's Shao Kahn. If Shao Kahn ever does something alternate where he just wins a bunch, I'm like, it is Shao Kahn. Like, if there was ever a character that could just randomly be OP and kill everybody, even though that's not like the normal trajectory, I'm like, yeah, Shao Kahn. I'll allow it. I think all of us would. Like, when you see Shao Kahn, that's what you kind of expect. It's like, I don't, you know, we fought against Shao Kahn, especially in the 2D era. My God, that was rough. Like, he just went, like, him ramming into you, that was ridiculous. I hated that John, which is cool to see in the movie. He didn't use his powers as much. That was another thing, much like Sindel not doing the hair whip. Shao Kahn didn't do it as much as I was hoping, where he just, you know, shoulder bash some people, but he did enough. He did do it like 3 or 4 times. And I think when he fought Kitana, he actually used multiple powers. Like most people, he would do like the shoulder ram once and then that was literally it. And then I think against her, he did it like at least like 2 times. So I was like, okay, at least we got to see him use his powers more than once per fight. So that was cool. But I liked everything they did. Just to you know, since I'm obviously jumping around. Kano, of course, came back. Hilarious. Quan Chi was in this. Pretty good. I enjoyed that. They had like that slight moment. I wish Quan Chi went with Shang Tsung so bad just to be like, Deadly Alliance. They kind of had a moment like for half a second. I was like, oh, that felt like a Deadly Alliance kind of moment. So I appreciated that, you know, them almost killing Raiden. I was like, okay, I can definitely respect that. So that was pretty cool. But all in all, it was a fun movie. Kano, of course, was hilarious. Johnny Cage was good. You know, them going through. Obviously, we saw Ed Boon in the Johnny Cage sequence. That was pretty nice. And all the little references they had. I love one of my favorite, one of the best ones. They had 2 that I really loved, and this was one of them. It was my favorite one. Johnny saying, "I love your cosplay." Like, what is that? Big Trouble in Little China. I was like, okay, that's probably my favorite reference as like a full circle, like nerdy moment. I was like, that I love. And then the first fight with Johnny Cage where he was like dizzy, and then of course you even have Shao Kahn be like, finish him, and you know they do the thing where he's just standing there, and then eventually he can't hold himself up, so he passes out. And I was like, that's great. That's like such a simple, cool, realistic way to do that. Absolutely love that sequence. And there were, of course, a bunch of other references. I heard that there was even more if you actually saw it in IMAX, like in the Deadpool, which is the acid pit level for anyone who isn't familiar with the games. That's actually called like the Deadpool. I heard in IMAX when you can see more of the screen, they almost have stuff that kind of look like actual life bars between Cole and Shao Kahn, where it's like kind of designed to kind of look like life bars. So I wish I could see that. Maybe I'll just look up some picture comparisons, but I thought that was kind of cool. But love the references that we got. And, you know, of course, both Johnny Cage and Kano, of course, were hilarious. It was cool to get Scorpion back. They were in there a surprisingly random amount. Like, I was curious. I was like, how are they going to implement them? They were literally just like, all right, resurrect Sub-Zero because he's kind of cool, so we need him to hide the amulet. And then it was just like, boom, he's Noob Saibot, which of course they don't call him that. But he's like, he's just Bihan. And then, of course, they go to Scorpion. It's like, Bihan's back. And it's like, well, now I'm pissed. So then he, of course, ends up helping them. But I enjoyed the action. I liked the fight that they had. Of course, I'm still going to just call him Noob Saibot because that's what he is in the game. But I enjoyed Noob, like, just jumping around. I love the fact that he straight up split the shadow off entirely because, of course, you play the game. It's like one-on-one. And then he just splits the shadow off. So his real self is fighting Scorpion. And then the shadow self is going up against Johnny and Kano. And I was like, that's actually cool because that's not something you really get to see because it's normally just like a little, you know, within a small arena. So seeing him literally just be like, all right, you just go like way over there and fight, and then I'll fight over here. And I was like, that's kind of cool. And then when they needed to, they would combine back together. So that was definitely awesome. And just everything they did, whether it was, you know, in the Nether, all the fights in general, I thought were definitely cool. But I love the way it was handled. I love, you know, watching everybody interact. And then, you know, Baraka scene, definitely funny, but also a really good fight. Like that was like the Johnny Cage moment where not only did he step up because he was like, okay, you know, trust me, I'll get him to fight you. And then, of course, you know, that doesn't happen. So he has to fight, and then he kind of gets into the groove. And I love the way that they did it where, and it's the scene from the trailer. So it was really funny getting to that moment in the actual film, because it was like, oh, they're mimicking literally all of his combat from the Uncaged movie, or I forgot the actual name of the fake movie that they showed in the beginning, but he was doing all the same moves. Like he was doing like the little spin, and in the beginning I remember thinking like, this is so, it was super cheesy. You know, he throws the pole to the lady, the rocket launcher, and then he dodges it and it flies up and it shoots what was clearly, I don't know why it was so funny to me, but it was so obvious that it was a miniature helicopter. It just made me really laugh, because normally you can't, because the whole point of miniatures is that they're supposed to look realistic, but something about it just looked like it was a miniature, and that just made me laugh even more. I don't know if that was on purpose or if that I just saw it in a way that made me be like, it's so funny, that's clearly a miniature. But that made me laugh a lot, because I was like, I don't know why, but it's like, that's a miniature. It looks like a miniature to me. So that made me laugh extra. But he was doing all of those actual moves against Baraka, and it was working, and it was really cool. I enjoyed that fight. Silly moment, him being like, witness like Johnny fucking Cage. All of that stuff was funny, but the action was great. The story was actually good. Obviously, it followed actual Mortal Kombat lore with Shao Kahn taking over and actually taking Kitana as his daughter and stuff like that, and then Sindel ending up like being with him over time and everything. So I enjoyed what they did with it. You know, they actually had revenants. They just brought Kano back because they're like, he ain't even worth all that. I just actually brought him back for real. It's like, we don't need to control him. Like, I don't care. I just brought him back so we could get the amulet. And I love Jade being like, we could have just left him dead. And he was like, hey. So that was a really good moment. But as a whole, definitely fun. Love the action. Love the way that it was handled. I love the way the story ended, where despite them killing off quite a few people, and not just Cole Young, him actually pseudo even killing Liu Kang, which is nuts. They get to the end. Quan Chi is being taken in, was brought in by Kano, and it's like, hey, we can go get our buddies back, and then he'll bring them back for us. And then it's like, okay, so they're gonna bring characters back. I'm totally fine. I think at this point is like, as long as they already introduced the guy as as a made up character. We already got a whole movie about him. He shows up in this one, then it gets his head splatted. He can be in the third one, even if he is just, they just bring him back as Cole Young again. It'll be okay. I think we're used to it. Just don't make him, overly important, and then I think it's totally fine. Like, he can just be a part of things. I am very curious what the next story is going to be, though. If it's not going to be another full-on tournament. They obviously reference Shinnok. They had the amulet. They destroyed the amulet. A lot of kind of current day references as far as like more recent games. So it's like, okay, let's see what happens. We haven't really had our Deadly Alliance, although they kind of killed Liu Kang. So if they did it again, it would it wouldn't have the same impact, except it could be permanent. It's just one of those things where it's like, if Quan Chi got free, then it would seem permanent. So we'll see what happens. We'll just have to wait and see. But as of now, I'm excited for Mortal Kombat 3, and that's great to say. This will be the first time we've had a third. This is our second Mortal Kombat movie, and a lot of people didn't like Annihilation. I like Annihilation, but I saw it as a kid. I always liked the second one more than the first one. Maybe it's just because, oddly enough, they didn't really do a tournament in the second movie. It was almost like the reverse of this one, but I actually like the second one more as a kid, of course. I think I probably would still now. That's just me. I just always kind of really enjoyed it. This upward rating was obviously weird. Shout out to James Remar just randomly being like, all right, I'm just cutting the hair off. I don't know why, but it was like, let's just be done with that. But definitely enjoyed this movie. Definitely thought it was really fun. I like what they did with the characters, including how they were like, okay, here's Cole Young. All right, we killed him. There you go. But then they were like, no, we're killing people. It's Mortal Kombat. We're killing people you don't expect. Like, who would have seen the Liu Kang kill coming? Regardless of where you are, it's like, they played up Liu Kang, especially in this one. Like in the first movie, they barely did it at all. Like there literally wasn't a tournament. People were just kind of fighting here and there. But in this one, it was like, no, Liu Kang, the last son of the dragon. Like he does the dragon. Like everything was super cool. Again, like amazing hits off and everything. It was like, this is awesome. And then it was just like, bam. I was like, they just killed Liu Kang. Like how do you, like my girlfriend multiple times gasped because it was like, how are they these people off? And even I was like, Liu Kang? But I'm very excited for what they end up doing for their third movie. I think they did a great job improving on this. Like that's one of those things that gets to like, you get an extra point for how much improvement there was. But in general, I think the movie itself was actually really well done. So I had a great time with it. Of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about it. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about the movie, your least favorite parts. I would love to know what your favorite battles were. If I was ranking them throughout like the film, Liu Kang Kung Lao would definitely be number one. I would probably say Kitana versus Shao Kahn would be my number two. I think because both of those had like the actual story elements as well as like the action in it, where it's like, okay, especially because even though technically that was, there were like two fights going on at the same time because you had the guys in NetherRealm being like, hey, we got to destroy the amulet. And Kitana was just fighting, even without that, she was kind of just fighting to try. So I think hers would be my second favorite. And of course the fatality for that, just doing the actual thing where she just splits his head. I was like, Okay, that's pretty crazy. Yo, I love like them doing some of the good fatalities in this movie, but that would probably be my number 2. And then I think the Netherrealm fight will probably be my number 3. And then after that, it's just like whatever random fights here and there. Although, actually, I don't know if I would give number 3 to the amulet battle where they were trying to get it just because of the shock value of him like actually killing Jax in that moment, which was pretty nuts. But that was also a good fight because that's where Liu Kang does like the thing where he does like the double dragon move. And like, you know, obviously he's immortal, but he gets like, they get so many good hits in where I'm like, it's interesting to see them do like these really good fights. And Liu Kang especially, because once again, being Liu Kang, every time he came at him with the hammer, he was always doing like these super smooth reversals where everybody else was just taking hits and just getting like sent flying. And Liu Kang just like, yeah, I'm just, nope. Like he was Liu Kang. So I don't know. That might be like, that might actually end up being my 3rd favorite just because it was really good. And then also just like the insane shock of the way that ended, of them actually killing Jax off, which was nuts. But either way, a bunch of fights worth watching and rewatching eventually when this hits HBO Max. I'm definitely going to check out at least some of them again in 4K. And maybe they'll even have the IMAX version, which would be pretty cool because I know they've done that before. So that would be awesome to see like some of the extra moments if I don't end up, like I said, looking that up online. But those are my thoughts on Mortal Kombat 2. It was definitely an improvement, and even on its own, if this was the first Mortal Kombat movie, it still would have been a really great introduction to the franchise. But it gives that extra little bonus point to be like, all right, it's actually improved over what we had. So definitely loved it. Like I said, would love to know your thoughts on this movie. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.